Hey everyone, welcome back to the Not Just Politics podcast. The following is a conversation with Christian Górecki. He is the founder of the Unite America movement. We sat down today while he was visiting in Pittsburgh for an event with us to talk about politics, his journey to get into the bridge building space, and his advice for young people who also want to get into the movement. To support the show, check out the links for social media in the description and our page on the Say What Needs Saying network. Enjoy. Cameras are good? Okay. Hello.
What's up?
We're live. we're recording.
Cool.
Welcome to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's a very interesting city. I appreciate the welcome. I like it. I really enjoy some of the architecture you guys have here.
It's great. Yeah, we have like a Gotham City thing going on.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's very like if you ever saw the 1990s like cartoon Gargoyles.
I have not seen that. A little bit before my time.
Maybe somebody watching will know, and they'll be like, okay, yeah, like, I can.
They might.
Yeah, if they've been to Pittsburgh. Especially this building out here with like the pointy, it almost looks like a castle.
Oh yeah, that's one of the coolest buildings that we got.
It's very cool. Like most modern architecture, I'm like, yeah, but like that's very good.
Shout out to Point Park for the comfy pillows. Yeah, no, I mean, I have a question. Did the city driving intimidate you at all?
It didn't intimidate me, but I didn't know the topography of Pittsburgh at all.
Yeah.
Really. Like, I mean, obviously, I know Pennsylvania has like a lot of mountains, but
move that mic a little closer to you.
Yeah, so obviously I knew Pennsylvania had a lot of mountains, but I didn't know it extended like this far out. I thought it was just going to be Pittsburgh was going to be essentially like a grid city, like a Midwestern type city. No, it's a very
No, it is not.
It does like in terms of like driving, that sucks like a lot, but in terms of like being a pedestrian, that's very cool. It makes everything is close together. Like it's very like European feeling. I really like that. It's like if you're walking around, like when we were walking here, that was a really good, like just enjoyable experience.
Yeah, quick walk. That's what I like about it most. Like from Point Park, we can walk really to like any place. Like we can get so far. I feel like in 20 minutes, you could walk to so many different places from this campus. Yeah. Okay. So of all the places that you've traveled, what's like been your favorite city you've been to?
Ooh, that's a good question. It depends on what, too, because it's like I feel like they stand out for different reasons. But I think if I had to pick just generically one that was my favorite, I would probably say Miami.
Okay.
Miami's just a good vibe. I don't know if I'd ever want to live there. It just seems like a lot. But it's a great place to visit, so I recommend it for everyone if you haven't been there.
Were you there for an event?
Yeah, I was there for a conference. I was tabling and like filming one of these as well, or one of the things we're going to be doing later. So yeah, I was there for that, and I've been there a few other times for similar, like in the past, different political stuff, mostly conferences. Okay. But it's a great city. I recommend it.
I haven't been to Miami. We were in Orlando earlier this year for the
totally different. Yeah, Florida is like a continent,
Yeah, no, it actually is though, because it is so different depending on where you go. No, Orlando was dope though.
It's fun.
Been to Miami.
The one thing about Orlando I don't really like is Miami's got something. It's similar to Pittsburgh in that because of the Everglades and then like obviously the ocean, like it kind of like squeezes it in. It squeezes it in into like almost like a little island. Mm-hmm. So like the city itself is not like super spread out, and there's also like no zoning laws there. So like you'll have anything you'd ever want, like right in every neighborhood ever. Like
that's also really cool.
Yeah, but Orlando is kind of the opposite. It's very spread out and kind of a pain in the ass to get everywhere, but it's a cool city as well.
Okay, for our viewers who don't know, can you kind of tell them what Unite America Movement is and like why you started it?
So Unite America Movement is we're essentially trying to be more of like a media group now. So more like online focused, but still working with college campuses. We kind of consider ourselves like an auxiliary student group. So we've worked with, and that really just goes into the whole mission statement. We've worked with, libertarian groups, conservative groups, socialist groups, normal like liberal groups, Bridge USA as well. People who have like very similar goals and views, as well as people who have very different ones, but want to like kind of take advantage of the resources we're putting out there, which we're totally happy to do. So we want to work with all these groups to essentially put on interpolitical discussions, and the goal of that is not necessarily to get people. A lot of people ask me like, "Oh, are you guys like centrist?" I'm like, "No, we're like just trying to get people from different sides to accurately understand the other side, because most people interact with each other in terms of like a caricature, rather than like something like a little more objective." rather than like going and like reading the other side's literature or anything like that. They'll just listen to a pundit from their side give like the caricature of the other side, and then they'll be like, oh, they believe this. And once you start to know both sides and just be educated on it, I find telling my friends from like both sides, right, both sides, right, like even though there's like a million sides, but from both sides, like actually like that's not really what they believe. They believe this, and they're like, okay, now I can understand that. I still disagree with them, but I understand it. And so that's essentially what we're trying to do, is alleviate like the culture of hostility in contemporary America when it comes to politics. People can still disagree, but still like be able to have conversations and work together. It shouldn't be this essentially like all or nothing. Like I can't let the other side have any wins or anything like that, and that's kind of what it's devolving into. In terms of that, and I say this a lot. A lot of people think like, oh, like people like no one can handle disagreements anymore. It's like that's not really true. It's not even disagreements that people have a problem with. I found that it's actually the lack of being able to comprehend how someone else got to that position is what really makes people short circuit. So I would bring up the example of sports teams a lot. So most people like, if there's like they're a fan of like an objectively really bad sports team that hasn't like won like any titles,
like the Pirates.
Sure, yeah.
We haven't won a World Series since I think 1974 or something like that.
Yeah, or like prior to a few years ago, people would make jokes about like, oh, the last time the Cubs won the World Series, women couldn't vote, stuff like that. So most people can understand like, oh, well, they like this like objectively bad, like record bad sports team. They're probably from that state, from that city. Maybe they know somebody on that team. Maybe they just like the colors. People can figure that out. And like, I know there's people who get like really, that are like very like, oh, I don't know how they like that team. There are people like that, but
those are Point Park students that say that.
But for the most part, most people can understand why someone would like a, poorly performing sports team. But for like things like politics, it's a lot different. Like it's more complicated, and people have this thing where they're like they get mad when someone has a certain view, but it's not necessarily the view itself they're mad at. It's the lack of understanding of how that person could get to that position. But once they do accurately understand it, their whole demeanor changes. They're like, oh, okay, like I see why you think that. I still disagree, but like I get why you think that. And then it just becomes like a cordial, like, oh, like it's. Becomes as casual as like, oh, like, I like vanilla ice cream, you like chocolate. Like, no one gets mad about that, right? Like,
no, not usually.
Not usually.
Not usually, no. I mean, someone in one of my classes did. I remember that. They got real angry that somebody didn't like Rocky Road or something like that. Yeah. That happened. Yeah, that's the one thing that I think that was something that bugs me about people talking about Bridge USA is they say we're just a bunch of squishy centrists, and I'm like, but if you went to any of our meetings, you'd know that the majority of the people that run this thing are pretty opinionated people.
Yeah.
We're not a bunch of squishy centrists. And I get how people could sort of think that, but that's just part that gets frustrating after a while. Because we're clearly not that. And you can just kind of like grab it there.
There we go.
Okay. Yeah, and then just kind of...
All right, dope.
Little thing there. Yeah, that's the one part that bugs me. It's like we're not a bunch of squishy centrists. Like we have centrists that are a part of the thing, but that's not everybody here.
Yeah, no, same. I think I think that actually works for me because like I put like obviously it's like in my group's name, it's like unite, and people are like they hear that and they're like, what are we uniting around? And that's like a very good conversation starter with people who normally wouldn't come up and approach me, like if it had a different name, for instance. I don't really have an example, but I've had a lot of people come up thinking they're going to be confrontational with me and talk about like, oh, you're just like trying to like keep things the same. I'm like, oh no, I'm actually like trying to give you a platform. So and then their whole demeanor changes as well. But it's a very good, kind of a provocative. Like people like think one thing when they see it, and then it propels them to come up and talk. So yeah. And I always tell people like, oh, I'm not trying to. My goal is not so there's going to be less communists and less ANCAPs. It's just like so those two groups can actually like interact with each other and have functional conversations. Because there's shared goals that those two groups have, and there's shared goals that every group has when you really think about it. So,
yeah. What did you learn about like just Americans as people and about the sort of political divide from all the traveling that you've done?
So, yeah. I hear the whole thing a lot where it's like, oh, like in our lifetime, there will be a second civil war. I think that is ridiculous because like so many people that are quote unquote on the same side don't even agree with each other on a lot of things. And you start talking to people, and like people are incredibly complicated. Like everyone holds like contradictory views and things that do not line up, and it's like that's normal. Like that's humans have always been like that. So one thing I've really learned is that people, when you talk to them in real life and you go to like these different places, is like there's so many different like facets of things that affect so many different people. Like for instance, like people will say like, oh, like these people voted for this candidate because X. I'm like, okay, well, what people are you talking about? Are you talking about people in Florida? Are you talking about people in Ohio? You're talking about people in Alaska? You're talking about people in California? You're talking about people in the city and rural areas? You're talking about old people, young people? You're talking about people who are like, working in the service industry? You're talking about firemen? Like it's different for every single person.
Yep.
And like within those, like there's so many different reasons, and like everyone has their own unique motivation. And there's like unlimited combinations of like motivations that people can have for doing a certain thing or supporting a certain policy. And I think people just need to kind of remember that and talk to more people. And like it was good. Like talking to so many people around the country, it really, in a good way, confirmed my suspicions that like most people are actually like pretty cool, and they actually want to like work with each other, and they're like very like genuine. So it was really great to see that. Really like boosted my faith in humanity, I'd say. So I recommend everyone, when you're in a new place, like just talk to people if you can.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. I think that's the one thing that that point about people having like all these really contradictory views and having the like infinite combinations of motivations. I saw that a lot at the Bridge USA Summit. I was a kid from Pitt. One of the guys from Pitt we did like the Jubilee Spectrum thing. And it was the whole like college education should be free, and he was. It was funny. The previous prompt was, it was like the socialism versus capitalism thing, and he was on the capitalism side, and then the free college thing happened, and he stayed there. He was like, yeah, well, I think that like if you're gonna have a capitalist society, you need to have the best like educated citizen group like that you can. I thought that was really cool. Like I've never heard someone make that argument.
Yeah, and I think some people would look at that as a contradictory statement, but based on what he said, I'm like, that doesn't contradict with his like economic views at all. Like it totally makes sense to me. I mean, like most people who consider themselves capitalists or in pro free market economics, they still support like the government building the roads or like paying contractors to do that. So like no one's 100% everything, but I don't think that's contradictory. Like,
yeah, and I thought that was cool. And I don't think he's like actually like a super. From when I talked to him, he's not actually like a super capitalist guy, but like he was making that argument, and I just thought that was really interesting. And I met a ton of people that were like that, and just like you said, like people are complicated. People don't always hold the, and that's why it's kind of weird. Whenever I see somebody that does have like the entire package of like all one side, I'm always like, come on. I know that this probably isn't you. Like, you're hiding something for whatever reason. And like, I'm not trying to, belittle anybody for that, but it's part of me is like, come on. I know there's something else here. There's gotta be.
I think a lot, you do get people who are very passionate about 1, 2, maybe 3 issues. And they think, oh, like, let's say blue team supports these 3 issues that I really care about. But I don't really know about the 50 other issues they're talking about. But because blue team supports these 3, I'm just going to blindly like follow these. Or it's not even blindly follow. A lot of times people feel like they have to because they don't want to be a traitor. But like when you really like get down to it, it's like, oh man, you can have like a combination of those opinions. And if you want some of those opinions to come over to the side or the political party you vote for, the best way you can do that is like talk about it, make an argument to your side for those policies. Just like shutting up and like towing the party line like won't change anything. So
no, and I think I see a lot of people do that. And again, I don't belittle those people because I understand, like I get it. When you're stuck in that's a weird position to be in. If you are really passionate about a couple of issues, then you feel like you said, you feel like you have to sort of support that. But then in the process, you toe the party line. And as much as it's kind of discouraging whenever I see that, I don't really blame those people. But like, I agree. You have to talk it out with those people if you really want to do that. Well, okay, so this is interesting because you said you think it's unlikely that we're gonna run into a second civil war. Did you see that Marjorie Taylor Greene tweet that she threw out?
Which one?
about like needing a national divorce and
Oh, yeah,
separate
yeah.
red
I mean,
states and blue
a
states.
lot of people have been saying that, and I'm like, isn't this just another way of saying I want like a smaller like federal government, or like I want the supremacy clause of the federal government to go away? Like I don't, people think it's like this huge thing. It's like you could do that easily within like the framework of what we already have. So I think that's like one of those political things where it's like I don't know, like everyone when they say like national divorce, everyone means something different.
Yeah.
Like some people straight up mean like states like separating. Some
Well, she
people,
did say that. She was like, we need to
Okay.
separate red states and blue states. And I'm thinking, first
but
of
like,
all,
what does she mean by that? Like,
I don't know.
Exactly.
First of all, how do you do it? Because
Yeah.
it's not like all the red states are on one side, all the blue states are on the other. They're all spread out. It's like, how are you going to actually separate?
Well, they're not even not even just geographically, like politically, like they don't all support
yeah,
the
like
same
what do you
stuff.
do with Pennsylvania?
Yeah,
What do you do with us? We're purple. Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to separate? Like, you're just going to actually
We're also gonna have purple states.
just-
Like it's gonna be a three-way
just
thing.
gerrymander the entire state, cut up all the red
Yeah.
parts and the blue parts and move them apart. I guess you'd have purple states. But I'm interested if you could like make the argument for a national divorce.
Like if I could like
Yes.
deal with it. I mean, it depends what people are talking about. Like I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I don't know if I could make the argument for like the country like actually like breaking up into different like countries, but I mean, you could really, I mean, like if you're gonna make the argument for like states just having more autonomy, that's kind of all you're doing. I don't really see how that's a national divorce. I mean, if you want to go like straight up, like every state is like we just become a confederation. Like I guess the argument for that would be more like a self-determination thing. I think you would have huge problems that would come out of that, especially when it comes to like the economy, if depending on how like each state reacted, like, and you could have like different levels of that, like maybe like politically it's like confederated, but like economically it's like it has to be one zone essentially.
Yeah.
So like it really depends on like on how you want to, again, like there's like a million different ways to approach that, and there's a million different motivations in terms of like if you're talking about like a national divorce, and like again everyone who says that means something different.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I would take it literally, like the country actually
Like,
separating into
okay.
2 or 3, or honestly, 2 or 3 seems kind of silly. I don't like any of those arguments because I don't think we should split apart. But the best one that I heard, I think, was from Michael Malice, and he was like, you would have to kind of split it into like 5.
Yeah.
Because like the Northeast would be 1, the South would be 1, the Midwest would be 1, and then like the Southwest and Northwest, like you'd have to split it.
Florida would just be its own thing. Probably.
Florida would be
Yeah.
its own thing. Florida wouldn't even be a part of the South.
Yeah,
It would
Alaska
just
would be its own thing as well.
Yeah, but like so
Probably just go back to
Alaska,
Russia now.
Alaska and Hawaii wouldn't fit into that. But like and he was making that from like a cultural perspective, because
Yeah.
like what do people from Oregon and Florida really have in common culturally? Like
Yeah.
they're Americans, but
it's one of those things where you can do all that without like splitting up the states. Still, like
Yeah,
you
that's
give
why I just don't-
You can just have like regional autonomy. You could have like
Yeah.
You can have like another level of like the, I don't know, the divisions of the United States where you go from like states to like regional like viceroyalties or whatever
just
you want
like
to call them. Like,
a grouping of states.
yeah.
But I think, well, that's true. Everyone does mean something different. I don't know what Marjorie Taylor Greene meant, but I think she did literally want to separate
Yeah, but
the red states and the blue states. I just
that
listen,
might
like
just
when
be
these people,
political pondering too, like political posturing. But
when people make that argument, I just don't know. Like, what do you actually mean? Like, how are you gonna do it?
I think if you gave them like a little button in front of them that said like, all right, push this, and you get like your separation that you're talking about, I don't think anyone would push it. In like if they're talking
No.
about, yeah, like
I would.
I
would
think
not.
for a lot of people it's about like being edgy and like
Yeah, well,
being
I think that's their
different
whole
and standing
thing.
out. Yeah, like, and that's the thing about like especially politics when you're younger. Like younger people are stereotyped and like statistically have like more extreme views, or at least like they present them in a more extreme way.
How old is she?
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah.
She's she's not that old. I mean, like she's probably like early 40s, right? Late 30s. I don't know.
Now I gotta look this up.
But that's definitely not the craziest tweet she's ever had, though. So
No, definitely not. But that one. Oh, I typed in MTG for Marjorie Taylor Greene, and it gave me Magic the Gathering. Oops. What?
48.
She's 48. Okay, well that's
okay.
all right.
Well, she looks good for her age then.
She does.
Props.
She does. That's true. Yeah, I don't know. She was like shooting a gun in one of her ads that one time. She was shooting that like giant rifle, and she was like, "We're gonna give this to one American." Or whatever. Like they gave it away. I don't even think they could do that. They gave away a gun or something like that. And then like she was like shot a truck. she shot a truck with the giant rifle, and she was like, "That's like the radical Democrats, socialist America," and then was like, "Tudunk."
Yeah.
And that was kind of wild. And I didn't like that tweet because I'm just thinking like, I think you're right. Like if you had the button, you wouldn't push it.
No, I mean, like, there's definitely people who would, but I think the vast majority wouldn't.
Those like the Bridge CEO calls those types of politicians. He calls them like polarization entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the term.
That's one thing I wanted to bring up too. It's like people like the fact that there's at least perceived polarization and like hostility between different political sides. People make a lot of money off that.
Yeah,
like,
they do.
Politics, in terms of like just political punditry, it's way more popular than it was like 20 years ago.
Yeah,
like especially with young people. Like I talk to like high schoolers and they're like watching political stuff. Like like people weren't doing that 10 years ago. Like
no.
it was weird. Like if you
they
did
weren't
that
doing
in high
that whenever
school,
I was in high school.
Yeah, and that was like like 4 years.
Yeah,
ago?
I mean like I graduated in 2021.
All right, yeah. Exactly.
So
like,
I remember in I remember my sophomore year. It was 2018, 2019. Nobody was political. Like it wasn't anywhere.
It was considered when I was in high school. It was like if you like cared about politics, people were like, "All right, like you're a nerd, whatever." Like
yeah, yeah, it was like a thing. But then
like people wouldn't like make fun of you, but people would be like, "That's kind of boring, dude. Like, why do you care about that?"
Yeah, I agree. But now you have, high schoolers that are like watching Fox News and CNN.
Yeah,
like trying to get their news.
I remember, like in like late middle school, they started making us watch like CNN clips.
Yeah,
bruv.
Like, into like high school, they really like focused on like making sure you would stay up to date on current events for like history class.
yeah.
Oh, see, my school was. Do you want a mic?
That's fine.
Okay, because there's one over there. We can always hook it up. Yeah, no, but I remember that. It was like it wasn't political. Nobody in my class was political. Maybe occasionally it would sort of come up as a thing, but I didn't really feel like anybody cared. And then as soon as 2020 hit, it felt like our politics got really, really personal to us all of a sudden. And all of a sudden it was like, okay, if you disagree with me, it's not just a disagreement on like foreign policy or whatever. All of a sudden now that's racist, that's xenophobic or whatever. And that is like a direct almost attack on me now because you disagree with my politics.
Yeah, if you disagree with me, it's because you have bad intentions, not because...
Yeah, and I just never understood that. And I had classmates call me all sorts of crazy stuff because I would just try to argue the other side of an issue with them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that part just kind of bugs me. Because like I said, I think that I think that most people out there are cool people.
Yeah.
They're good people. They're just trying to get through life like everybody else.
It's like most of my friends, like my core group of friends, they all have like very different politics.
Yeah,
like
so
if I like,
that way.
yeah, it's like if like we like fell into the whole like, oh, like blah blah blah, like you're a bad person for believing this, like I wouldn't have like 90% of my friends. Like if I did that.
No,
like,
neither would I. No, I mean we might be friends because we agree on the majority of stuff, but not everything. But like our vice president of arts for the Bridge chapter, she's really conservative, so she's out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think one of my roommates is out. Like everyone's out if we play that game.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And then I feel like whenever you have that mindset too, your interactions with the people that you call your friends aren't genuine because everybody's afraid of saying that one thing that gets them kicked out of the group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's one of those things like having like an in-group preference and stuff like, and that is like, that's part of human nature, unfortunately. And it's one of those things where it's very addicting when you get into it and like you want to like keep doing it, and it's really hard to get out of that cycle. But once you are able to break out of it, you will live like a much happier life. And I know that just from personal experience, and then just like seeing that on other people that I've kind of like brought out of that from talking to them, or just seen them do it on their own. They go from being like a very bitter, depressed person to being like a very like generally more successful and very happy person.
Yeah.
And they still care about politics. They still have pretty much the same views. It's just like they have a completely different mindset to how they approach it. And they're also very much more successful at getting what they want done because they're more willing to collaborate with different people.
Yeah, you have to do that. I'm reading right now. I'm reading a book. I'm reading a book from Monica Guzman. She's a senior ambassador for Braver Angels.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. She's a senior ambassador, and she wrote a book called I Never Thought of It That Way, and it's sort of like her whole political journey into sort of like becoming a bridge building person, and she was kind of talking about how the like the work week as for being a senator got changed from like 5 days down to like 3. So now our elected officials aren't even spending time in DC having dinners with people from across the aisle, going to get-togethers, like doing social stuff. It's like fly to DC for 3 days, cram all of this work in, have no interaction with the other side, just bash through whatever policies you want to get through, and then go home for the next 4. And it's like you're not going to get anything done because you're not talking to the people that you have to convince to get your thing passed.
No, exactly. I mean, like, they already don't have enough time to read the bills, so.
No, they don't because they're 700 pages long. I was watching like an old Jon Stewart clip when this was like back in the early 2000s. There was a Republican candidate who was like, I'm going to reduce like the size of the bill to like 3 pages max because you can read that during dinner. And it's like his pitch was kind of silly. It was almost kind of like over the top. But it's actually like in my mind doesn't seem like not like 3 pages, obviously, but like if you could limit it to like 20.
Yeah.
Like 700 is too much. That's just too much.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if you, and again, I don't know anything about politics. I don't know how any of this stuff works. But I feel like if you did cut it down to 20 pages, you'd have to make sure you, like, you
put the important, that's the other thing.
Important stuff, real specific.
Like all of those bills, like, and like, this is completely legal to do. Like, they have like what's called pork in them. So, which is where you stuff things that have nothing to do with what the bill sounds like in there that you just want to get through. And that's every bill. And, like, it would be very easy for, like, a law regulation to be passed and saying, like, hey, like, what you have in a bill has to pertain to, like, literally just the title of the bill.
No pork.
Yeah, no pork.
No pork in the bills, guys.
We're only halal here now.
Yeah. That'd be so funny. That's how they pitched it.
The halal bill.
It would have to be. No, but that's a good point. I like that, though, because I think, like, if you could, I mean... What's the maximum then that you could read over dinner for a government bill? Like, is it like 20, 30 pages? Like, it can't be 100.
I'm a slow reader, so probably like 15 for me.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, it depends on how fast the reader is. Yeah. But I think even 100 is too much.
Oh no, that's
like, what do you
too
need
much,
100? What do you need to explain that takes 100 pages? Like, I get that this is complicated. We're dealing with a lot of stuff, but 100 is just too much. And 700 is just like that. Nobody can read through that. Nobody can check to see what's in there.
Yeah, they'll get it and they'll have like 24 hours.
Yeah, it's
not
too
possible.
much. It should
like even if they put their entire staff on like, we're gonna divide this up. It's like, okay, like
everyone's got.
Yeah, and then it's not the elected official making decisions at that point. Like it's like
no, the biases of their staff.
Come
through on reporting what they've read. Yeah, well, that part doesn't. That part just doesn't really make sense to me, to be honest. And I don't like that they have to. Yeah, they get like 24 hours to read this giant piece of legislation. Like, there's no way you can understand everything that's inside of it. But I think that's a problem because then that becomes a talking point with the pundits. It's like, oh, the Build Back Better plan. Has anyone seen what's in this? It's 700 pages of socialist propaganda or whatever. And it's like,
yeah, it's like, and then I'm totally gonna read through that to see if you're correct about your
yeah, yeah. Like no one's gonna know.
Yeah,
it's just too much. It is. I just don't. Yeah, I don't like that part. That's not great. And also another thing that was in the news, Trump's about to get arrested or something, apparently.
Yeah, isn't that like every week that we hear something about that?
Yeah, I think this is like the 7th time. So I'm curious about your thoughts on this. I think my concern with Trump always getting arrested, I'm always making this legal case, is that it's not going to make him go away.
No, I mean, like, it depends. I guess it depends what he gets arrested for, but
people are just going to, like, his base is just going to rally around him now because he's...
Yeah, I mean, that's just, anyone... is going to, a lot of people, if he does get arrested, they're going to be like, oh, well, this is just them persecuting him.
The system's rigged, the whole thing, because he's now branded himself. It was interesting.
Plus, there's, and you can easily make that case because it's like so many other politicians have done things that they should have gotten arrested for and have not. So it doesn't look good on,
doesn't look good on the system.
No, like on the selective enforcement of justice when it comes to, elite politicians, I guess, or just elite people in general.
That's a good point. And also I think it's interesting because when Trump first, I mean, like this is because I don't really remember whenever Trump first kind of hit the scene because I wasn't really politically conscious. But from what I understand, he sort of branded himself as this sort of like, okay, the institutions, the establishments, they're out to get you. I'm in the way. I'm going to stand in between them. I'm going to be the bulwark. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to stick a middle finger up to the establishment. I'm going to call everybody out. And people liked that. And then after January 6th and all that stuff happened, he sort of shifted to like, okay, now you all have to back me up.
Yeah.
You all have to take
That's
the
a good way to
shots
look
for
at it.
me. And people weren't really as willing to do that. And then you saw the people sort of leave him and abandon Trump a little bit and go over towards DeSantis. But now I've seen him. I think he was at CPAC and he was like, I am your martyr. I am your warrior. The system is rigged. I will fight it for you. We're going to kick out all the XYZ people he listed, all the globalists, all this stuff. And so now it's like, now he's branded himself as a martyr. So if they arrest him, all it's going to do is it's going to funnel people towards him.
Yeah, well, I think that happened already when they raided his house.
Yes, that is true. That was maybe like the first instance of that. So it's weird. He's like in a new... If this is an anime, Trump is now in his new arc. And he's like now the martyr for the conservative base.
I think so a lot of people were very like disheartened with his performance as president, and a lot of people said like, oh, like people like went like there was either like the camp of people that were like, oh, like they just stopped him from getting anything done, like, you know, like the cabinet, the deep state, whatever, whoever they want to say.
Yeah.
And like there's legitimacy to all of that as well. And then there's the group that's like, oh, he lied from the beginning. He just wanted to be president, and then he got in and he governed like just a basic Republican, and he didn't do any of the stuff we wanted him to do. In many ways, he did the exact opposite, XYZ. And I think like the group of people that were like, oh, he was just being blocked was like constantly shrinking. Yes. And then his Mar-a-Lago got raided. And then that group got a resurgence. And then like this is going on now. And then that group's getting a resurgence.
Getting bigger.
Because they're like, oh, if he was like controlled op the whole time, like why are they arresting him? You know?
Yeah, that's very true. And actually, Gavin, can you Google something real quick? I think Trump is like destroying DeSantis in the polls right now.
I think he's
up like 41 points or something crazy.
Well, a lot of people don't like. So when I talk to like people who are like about this that are like more willing to like are either like conservative leaning or people who have or will vote for Trump or whoever, right? Mm-hmm. They tell me like, oh, like DeSantis would get more stuff done. But, and this is the biggest thing I hear, like, as, like, their apprehensiveness towards voting for, like, DeSantis potentially is that, like, oh, but I don't like his foreign policy. That's the biggest thing I hear is, like, they're like, oh, they're giving us him as a consolation prize. We'll get some of the domestic things we want, but then we'll have, like, super, like, war hockey foreign policy.
Yeah.
And a lot of the, you know,
with
a lot of the
DeSantis?
Trump. Yeah, because, like, a lot of the people that voted for Trump, at least that I know, like, this is, like, obviously based on my anecdotal experience, were very, like, happy with, like, not as much as like his actual performance, but they liked him better than the last like 4 presidents in terms of like foreign policy because they thought he was a lot more like less interventionist, less like hockey. But they, you know, and he ran on like he did run on that, so like that's understandable.
Yeah.
So Trump is leading in the polls by 41 points to 27 points.
Jeez. Yeah, so he's way up.
But that's polls.
Yeah, it's like
I mean that's true. I mean, sometimes they do sort of show the projection of like what's going to happen, though. I mean, like that's
pretty close.
Yeah, I guess 41 to 27 is not like that big of a jump. I also don't know what the usual.
It's very early.
That's true. It is. But I mean, like if they arrest him,
the poll might be on like people who like have like voted for Trump in the past. Like they might be polling like those specific people or people from like counties that disproportionately voted for Trump. So
that is true.
To see like what Trump supporters are feeling, because then if it's that, then it's actually like that shows the other thing, like because that shows like, you know, what was it, like 20% or like moving to DeSantis from people who voted for Trump in the past. So
that's true.
So it depends how. Yeah, that's the thing about polls. It's pretty easy to manipulate them.
I think if he gets arrested though, that group might get bigger.
No, I think I agree with that for sure.
If he gets arrested,
at least temporarily, like you know, people might like happen soon, and then by the time the election comes around, people just forget about it. You know, 24-hour news cycle. So
Yeah, that's true. I feel like he's just constantly in that news cycle, though. Like, he
That's true,
honestly,
yeah.
whenever he was president, he was CNN's 24 News.
Oh, yeah.
He
yeah.
was there. And I think he was Fox's, too. Like, they loved him, and CNN and MSNBC hated him. And he was so good at just sucking up all of the headlines and all
We
of
got
their
people to
airtime.
watch the channels. Like,
Yeah, he didn't. He was the reason why CNN stayed alive during
Yeah.
those 4 years.
I was looking into this recently, and a lot of those channels and just like generally like bigger like household name like networks, MSNBC, just NBC in general, like ABC's, all these like letter acronym
Yeah, the
channels.
alphabet.
Yeah, the alphabet.
What did my? Oh my god! I was in a business law class, and my professor called all of the government agencies the alphabet soup.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like the CIA, the NSA, the FBI. It was so funny.
But all of those networks, they have like these really like stringent contracts with like cable providers and stuff. So like
Yeah.
that's a big way they've been able to stay alive. That and like with sports and stuff as well, live sports. But now that's starting to migrate. Although like the streaming services they're migrating to are owned by these big networks. So like I was watching a lot of the World Cup games on the streaming service Peacock, which is owned by obviously
Owned by NBC.
Although like until that came out, I didn't realize that their logo was supposed to be a peacock.
Stop.
Yeah, I don't watch TV. Come on, like,
No, that's true. That's true.
I just never looked at it close. I don't know what I assumed it was, just like a design, but
But then that begs the question: why is it a peacock?
yeah, I don't know.
What's the point? What does NBC stand for?
I'm guessing it's National Broadcasting Channel.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't think I watched any of the World Cup. I'm not a big sports guy, though.
Yeah, neither am I. World Cup and Olympics are probably like the only two things I watch, and then like Super Bowl, World Series. But
I didn't even watch the Olympics this last time.
I didn't either, probably because it was like off, and I feel like nobody cared about the Olympics this last time since
No,
I
I didn't
postponed a
care
year.
at all.
There's what was funny about like there's an anime, I think it's Akira, where like there's the 20 it came out in like the late 80s, I think.
Mhm.
And like the 2020 Tokyo Olympics gets postponed by like the virus.
No,
And that happened in real life.
It's a Simpsons moment.
Yeah.
They predicted it.
But it was so weird that just like that shift. Like I don't know anyone who watched the Olympics. So I feel sorry, Japan. That sucks. But
Yeah, I know. It does.
Yeah.
But I didn't watch it, though. I used to watch it. I used to be into it. It wasn't Tokyo Summer Olympics.
Yeah.
So, yeah, see, I'm not as... I'll watch the Winter Olympics.
I guess the winter happened too. I didn't watch those either.
Yeah, the last Winter
Yeah,
Olympics
yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
even watch. I just didn't really care. I don't know. I don't know why I don't care, but I just didn't.
I don't know.
That kind of hype. I never had hype, though. I
don't even really remember seeing advertisement for it at all.
I don't either.
Like,
As long as
maybe-
the USA won, I don't care.
Yeah, I don't even know if we did. I don't know if we did. I mean, it was in China, right? The Winter Olympics. I'm pretty sure it was in northern China. Pretty sure it was in Manchuria.
When was that?
Like this last one.
That was 2022?
Yeah.
Didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Didn't even know where it was.
Which is
No
funny because I'm
idea.
pretty sure like it's the Winter Olympics prior to that were in South Korea, so like geographically like super close to each other. But-
Yeah. Oh, it was in Beijing again. Okay.
Okay.
I was gonna say that other city did not ring a bell, but it went because it wasn't in Beijing like a while ago, and then they brought it back.
Yeah.
Went back again. It was so funny.
Was in Beijing a while back ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like 2006
Like 6 maybe.
or
8.
2008. I was gonna say that. I had it right. Yeah, no, it was so funny. Whenever I remember a couple of years ago, I was at a friend's house. We were like looking over where the Olympics was gonna be, and we looked up like a list of potential cities, and Pittsburgh was on the list, which was just
yeah.
the funniest thing ever. Because like, there's just no way. There's no way it would happen.
Well, the next World Cup, I believe, is co-hosted between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. Do you guys have a soccer team here?
No.
Okay.
Oh no, I mean we do. We have the Riverhounds, but they're like a minor league.
Okay. Yeah.
Team.
no.
Yeah, across the river. No, we couldn't host the Olympics here, even though we do have a hockey stadium, but they're just not big enough. Like they're just not.
No.
They're way too small.
Well, I feel like it would be like really hard to like pack like fans and stuff. Like I don't know how like if you guys have the infrastructure for that.
No, we don't. We
Yeah.
don't. We don't have the parking. We don't have the.
Yeah, that's totally
we don't
what I
have the
was thinking.
seating. We don't have the seating. The hotels.
Yeah.
We don't have any of it. We don't have anything that we need. Like nothing. I think like Heinz Field is. It's not even that big of a stadium.
Not that big, and it's our biggest stadium.
Yeah. That's the one that was Steelers playing is our biggest one. I'm sorry, Acrisure. I refuse. It's Heinz Field.
Oh, did
It's
you guys
Heinz
just have
Field.
your? Did it just change or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, that happened to.
Acrisure is.
It's Three Rivers Stadium.
There's those people. It was because it was Three Rivers Stadium, and then they demoed it, and then they built Heinz Field, and it will always be Heinz Field, even though Acrisure isn't it like some fucking insurance company from Michigan. Like no one here
Yeah.
cares about an insurance
Well,
company.
yeah, that
from
just
Michigan.
happened recently in Milwaukee. The Brewers now play in American Family Field, and it was Miller Park. It's like, how are you going to have a team called the Brewers and not be sponsored by like a beer brand?
A beer.
Like, come on, like,
Uh,
what were they, what were they thinking?
American Family Field.
Yeah, like American Family Insurance, like they bought the
That's
sponsorship.
hilarious. Insurance for all like the Dwees you get because you're on the Brewers or something. Like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think like what's the connection between like the Brewers and like insurance company?
Nothing.
There's no connection. You have to be sponsored by a beer company. That's what I'm saying. Like you're in Pittsburgh. How are you not going to be sponsored by like that's at this point we have Heinz and we have Turner's Tea, and Turner's Tea isn't even that popular outside of Pittsburgh. Heinz is all we've got, except for PPG, but that's the Penguins. That's PPG Paints Arena. That's the paint can. So, yeah, and I don't even care about football, and I was very upset whenever they changed the name of Heinz Field. Huh?
Westinghouse or
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, we have that too, but
Yeah, that's the downside to sporting teams being like private institutions because they can just do that. They can leave your city at any time. They can change the name of the stadium. Like
they can. That's what they can do. Well, I don't even know what was it before it was. What was the Penguins arena before it was the PPG Paints? I think it was like the BNY Mellon or something like that. It was like I think the Mellons had the naming rights to that. Well, because it was the Consol Energy Center before it was the paint can, and then it was before that it was like the BNY Mellon arena or something. I don't even know. I don't even follow sports. I just didn't like that one. That one that they did to Heinz Field, I was not too happy about. And I haven't even ever been in there, I don't think. It's just the fact that I can't look out of my window or walk down to the point and I don't see the giant Heinz sign on
well,
front of the stadium.
it's one of those things that's like unsettling because it's like one thing if it's like a little store that changes its name, but it's like a geographical landmark that big.
It's huge.
It's like imagine if like one day like New Yorkers came out and the Statue of Liberty like just had something different about it, like they painted it orange or something. Like
Hilarious.
yeah,
If they just replaced it.
they replace all the coppers so it actually looks like
Yeah, it's actually
looks
shiny
brand
again.
new. Like and be like no, like we liked it green.
We like to looking scummy and green and dirty like the rest of the city. Dude. Come on, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
No, but that would actually be really funny if they just replaced it with a statue of somebody new. Who would it be? If the Statue of Liberty,
Well-
they just
Captain America.
Captain America.
First, we'd have to find we'd have to like start like a movement because the Statue of Liberty is problematic in some way.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
and then we can get it
that's how we
removed.
could do
Yes,
Put it on the French first.
yes, yeah. We'll pin it on the French, and we'll be like, they made this for I don't know. We have to come up with a reason for why it's problematic.
Well, like maybe the designer has like something about him.
Yeah. The designer like owned. He was a misogynist.
He
And therefore we cannot allow this sculpture that a misogynist made to exist in the greatest city in the world. So we replace him with who? Obama. I was gonna say like Matthew McConaughey, like a giant.
no, it's
I'm trying to think of somebody that's like
It's,
universally loved.
The Rock.
Yes, it's like The Rock. Someone that's just universally loved. Can it be The Rock back in his wrestling days?
It's literally just him with like his belt and then.
Yeah, it's with the belt on over the shoulder.
Oh yeah,
Belt
that's
over
even
the
better, yeah.
shoulder. Just yeah, that would be great.
Fist with the his fist still in the air. Like
It's kind of like the meme where they're like, let's replace Stonehenge with something useful, maybe like an Applebee's, for example.
Yeah.
We'll just do that. replace the Statue of Liberty with a giant, huh?
Walmart would look perfect.
It's,
Walmart, right where Stonehenge is.
It's just we just replaced the torch with like a coffee cup, and that's a Starbucks that you can go up in, but you have to pay to go up there.
It's Hillary Clinton holding a cup of coffee. Shitting you. 100% true.
That's so funny. Yeah, maybe maybe changing the entire statue is too abrupt. Maybe it's just removing the torch and putting a Starbucks cup.
Yeah, well, Ship of Theseus it will slowly change things over the like century, and then like by the time we get to like 2100, people won't even know like, wait, it wasn't always like that. Like,
yeah, we'll just normalize it slowly and slowly.
and then we'll like change history books and like documents and stuff, and
Yeah,
everyone will be
we'll-
like, it was always like that. What are you talking about?
And we'll say that Starbucks was founded back in like Starbucks will just be way older than it is.
There'll be one like centennial, like 105-year-old guy who's just like, no, I swear to God. And
Some old guy.
they're trying to put him in like a mental institution.
He's like, I swear to God, he used to have a torch and a Bible.
Yeah, anyone watching, feel free to steal that story for your novel.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be a good. That's kind of like Orwellian in a way. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
They slowly change the Statue of Liberty. They rewrite all the books. They burn all the other ones that talked about it. Yes, Hillary with a cup of coffee. That's so funny. Speaking of, I promise this is connected. Speaking of the Clintons, I was just like scrolling through Instagram and I don't know why, but like Masterclass just recommends me like their latest classes that they come out with. And Bill Clinton has a masterclass.
Oh yeah, I knew that.
I was like,
So does George W. I'm pretty sure.
It was like Bill Clinton said, "Oh, he's going to teach you how to like handle criticism and diverse." And it's like criticism against what? Like cheating on your wife, like going to Epstein's Island 27 times. Like, what are we defending criticism from?
Yeah,
We know that this guy did stuff.
What if it like? It'd be funny if it was like because he plays one of his big things when he was like first running for office is he would always play the saxophone to show he's hip. What if his master class was in how to play the saxophone?
Okay, listen,
That'd be dope. I'd get that.
if it's Bill Clinton talking about politics and leadership, I'm out. But if it's Bill Clinton giving me a saxophone lesson, I'm there. I would watch immediately. That'd be the fastest thing I'd click on. That would be great. I've never seen any footage of Bill Clinton playing the saxophone.
He's pretty good actually.
That's fire actually. I like that.
Yeah. He seems like a saxophone guy.
He does actually. Yeah, he does. Okay, when you were at all these college campuses, this is a little bit of a pivot to a different topic.
No, that's
but
fine.
That's what we do every single
were
time
getting,
we record this podcast.
We were just chilling there for a while.
Yeah, we were just we were coasting. Are there any topics? What is this? Is this Bill Clinton playing the saxophone? No, it is not. Holy
Oh yeah.
shit.
That's what I was thinking of.
That is picks that go hard. That's insane. That should be somebody's profile.
Yeah, I was
picture
just
on
gonna say
Instagram.
that.
Fire.
But it's also Bill Clinton.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah, but
it's that
listen,
picture.
like he's playing the saxophone. He's got cool sunglasses on. At least for like,
it's the irony. Like for your burner account, like yes.
if there was if you had a shit post account or
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
that's the perfect profile.
Maybe even edit it a little more, like change the background so it's like something else.
No, you know what's a great?
No, this is bad. Change the background so it's like Epstein's Island. Or something lighter like outer space or something. I don't know. Up to you.
Oh my god! No wait. Have you seen the AI pictures that just came out? They did like AI pictures of Trump getting arrested, and it was like AI.
No, I didn't see those.
They're so good. Gavin, pull those up, please. Thank you so much, dude. They're the best. They're honestly those pictures are so funny. But no, while I was pulling that up, yeah, look at the.
You know what? I did see that one, but
They're so good.
I didn't see that one. The first one when I saw it, I just scrolled through and saw it.
That's the best
That's good. That's very memeable.
No, I'm telling you, these are hilarious. Wait, has AI figured out hands yet? Because every time they'll do like an AI generated image of stuff.
This one looks okay. Like the one cop has his like hand in his pocket on the left.
Yeah, well, he's
Okay.
going for his gun, so.
But
He is.
yeah, so
It is just not even holstered, just in his pocket.
Yeah.
No, but like
it's a secret one.
but he's like looking off in the wrong direction.
right, like every time.
There's like little details. But
Well, yeah, it was like Pence was running that direction, so he was.
Yeah.
you couldn't distinguish it.
Right. No, but like sometimes whenever it generates hands, it'll give people like 10 fingers on one hand.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
It didn't
or
know how to
you'll-
do hands.
You'll have
for a
two
while.
left hands a lot. Like,
Yeah, the hands are getting better. Well, it's all getting better, and I'm scared. But moving on.
do you remember when the National Portrait Gallery portrait of Obama came out and people pointed out that he had two left hands?
No, when what?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was either had two right hands or two left hands, but I think it was two left. And then people were reading into it way too much. Like,
This is were they saying like AI generated, or were they saying like
no, well,
he's a
the
lizard
person, the guy who made it, does like heavily use computers in his art, but people were like looking into it way too much from like a political perspective. Like, why does he have two left hands?
Oh my god.
It didn't like blow up, and I'm surprised it didn't. That like conspiracy didn't blow up more, but yeah.
That's so funny. Okay, I wanted to ask you about this though. When you've gone to all these different college campuses, have you been out west at all, or have you just mainly been like East Coast, Midwest?
I've mainly been, I haven't really gone to the other side of the Mississippi too much
Okay.
for this. Like I have in the past, but I've never been to California though. So
Okay, gotcha. Are there any trends? Are there any like topics or trends that people everywhere always bring up and talk about, or that they like won't discuss?
one people always bring up and talk about, and this is gonna be very relevant to us today, is people always bring up mental health issues.
Gotcha.
Pretty much like always 100% of the time. They might like vary a little bit on like what specifically they're talking about, but they always bring up some facet of mental health issues. As far as people like afraid to bring up, I guess I don't really know, because like
They
usually I ask them, like one of the things I always ask people a lot of the times is like, and you know, I've kind of discovered what to ask over time, trial and error. And one of the things I always ask is like, oh, is there an issue that you feel is really important but doesn't get enough attention? So if people are like afraid to bring one up, they're not going to tell me.
Mhm.
I've had people like try to get me to do more like, you know, cliche man on the street content.
Yeah.
Like they're like, oh, will you ask like the gender questions? I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like 500 million people on TikTok do that. Like,
Right.
yeah. Plus like, you know, like that's just like, you know, no one's going to feel like I'm approaching them with good faith if I ask them that. So
No, because that's just culture war fodder.
yeah, exactly.
just
And I'm
not
like
really
fine with
deep.
people like bringing that up on their own or like asking a question about that, but especially if it's like something you don't normally hear. But like I'm not gonna like go up to people. Like this one guy asked me to go up to people and basically be like, "Oh, what is a woman?" It's like, dude, like why would I do
Right.
that?
No,
Like,
we're not doing that.
there's already a market for that that's filled.
Yeah.
Like,
The market's already open for that.
yeah, the market is oversaturated with that.
No, it definitely is. Well, speaking of that whole thing that's been going on with like, Matt Walsh is just mean now. Like, I don't know.
haven't-
Whenever he first came out with the "What is a woman" thing, I was like, you know what? I do see a lot of like contradictory rhetoric from the left on like the whole gender thing. So I think it's actually an interesting conversation to have. And I didn't necessarily like disagree with the way that "What is a Woman" was like pitched and made as a documentary. Because I thought like that's an interesting conversation to have, even though it is like culture war fodder and it's not particularly helpful. It is kind of an interesting conversation. But now he's just mean. Now he's just like saying just like deliberately rude, disrespectful things to people that he doesn't even know.
Yeah, I feel like whenever someone gets, I've noticed this trend. Whenever someone like starts to get a little bigger, they start to do that. It's
don't
more
like it.
it's more of a problem with like people who were independent and just like got on YouTube and then got a bunch of like followers on Twitch or something, subscribers on Twitch. That you just see them go from like being like a like genuine nice person to just kind of like a unappreciative like dick essentially.
Yeah, he's like now he's just mean.
yeah.
I just don't.
Yeah,
I
fame
don't
changes
like it.
people a lot. This is one thing I've really tried to do with UAM is like I don't want to like be like super out there as the face of it. So like I was really happy about this. Somebody I was talking to Fire about partnering with them, and that's the
Ooh, yes.
Foundation of Individual Rights and Expression, formerly the Foundation of Individual Rights and Education, but now they do stuff off college campuses as well.
Yes.
And they were saying like, oh, I didn't know you were like the founder. I thought it was this other guy who works with me, Mike Hernandez. Shout out Mike Hernandez. You can also find him online as Mr. Stanford. So they thought it was him as his organization because he was in a lot of the early promos and stuff like that, and early videos and early posts. And I'm like, no, it's mine, but I appreciate that you didn't think it was mine because I do not want this to turn into some type of personality cult.
No, that would not be good.
And so many of these orgs really do, unfortunately. In terms of like groups that work with students and stuff, it seems like that's a trap people really fall into. Anything that really works with young people, like it. A lot of times it turns into whoever like the leaders, like the obvious one is like TPUSA, like Charlie Kirk's like very out there.
I was gonna say Charlie Kirk is the biggest example of
yeah,
that, I think.
Yeah. Not throwing shade on TPUSA. I'm just saying like I don't think that's necessarily like a healthy thing for an organization to have.
No, because he's sort of come out and been like very public, and I guess you mean like being public with like your viewpoints and
well, like
being
it's
famous.
like. It's just like he's like the face of it, and it's not like he's like the face of it in terms of like, oh, he's like the CEO. It's the face of it in terms of like he's like doing college talks, like he's out there like doing and like it just becomes like it's like, is this like, you know, what is this? Is this the organization this, or is it like Charlie Kirk? You know, like it really blurs it, and I don't think that's good for any organization to have. So
interesting.
If a TPUSA rep is seeing this, maybe like take that into account. I don't know. I think if you're gonna do something like that, you should really separate your own brand from your organization. But that's just my opinion. There's different strategies, but yeah.
Interesting. So 'cause that's interesting because I actually recently have thought that like you know, and I've been on like calls with people like discussing this, that like Bridge USA actually kind of needs sort of like a figurehead.
Yeah,
like
but
with a brand, but that's interesting.
I think it's different to have a face and like different for like your founder or CEO to like be the face. Like I think those are like different things, because it's one thing if it's someone who is just like a spokesperson for the organization, as you know, someone who's very charismatic and out there. Like that's just like a representative who's like the main representative. But then it's different when you have someone who's like in a controlling position, like being like the head of things. That can cause a lot of conflicts of interest, I believe.
Okay.
And, like I've seen that happen, so it's like, you know, I've worked at different orgs and stuff, and like just been around the block, I guess.
So you think it's better for these organizations to just have representatives?
Yeah, I don't think they should limit themselves to one. I think like it's very like they should have like there's like a good amount of like different reps you can have. Like I think maybe, like 4 or 5 is like a good number.
Braver Angels has that. Like
yeah, Braver Angels has. Braver Angels has.
Guzman, they have John Wood Jr.
Yep.
They've got a couple other people. I'm forgetting, blanking on names, but yeah, that's the one thing, because their actual founding members aren't really in the public eye. They're not really.
Yeah,
I don't even really, to be honest, I don't know their names. I probably should at this point, but I'm unfamiliar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, so then maybe that's then what Bridge USA needs. Bridge USA needs a couple of like representatives.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Because
currently the CEO is like, you know, Manu is currently the guy that's like going to all of the events. He's sort of.
But like what the way he does it is like how I like do it, or how I try to do it. Like he does a good job. Like. In terms of like
gotcha.
like not being like I know who he is, obviously. I've never talked to him actually, but like
I was gonna say, have you never met?
No, but I mean I know who he is and stuff, and like but I know he's like the whatever the title is, CEO,
he's
president,
CEO,
whatever. Yeah, I know like he's in that position, but I don't see like I don't think of like Bridge USA and like his face doesn't like pop up in my mind, you know. I think
that's
of, like,
true.
Think of like the logo, like think of like the different stuff they do. So yeah, and I think that's just better, like, cause it's just it makes an organization weak too, because it's like, what if something happens, like, you know, with like a scandal or something, then it's like if that person was, you know, if they were synonymous with the organization at the point where people think of that person first before like the rest of the organization, it's like, it just makes your organization very like essentially vulnerable for certain things. But
that's true. Huh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, because I've always thought that Manu's approach to that was very good. Like,
yeah,
that he does a good job at sort of keeping him, like, he's his own person. I don't really think of any in particular like person whenever I think of Bridge USA. It's just like the idea of, I mean, I do, because I was at the summit, so I kind of think of just like being in that room with all those people. But yeah, and I kind of agree with that. No, because let's say like something does come out that, like, you know, not that I want this to happen, but like if something came out like scandal with like Charlie Kirk, then like Turning Point takes a massive hit.
Yeah, then this is essentially what I'm saying. And like, you know, you can like destroy reputation forever with that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And especially when you're talking about like, you know, 501c3 nonprofits, or like any nonprofits really, you know, you rely on donor money. It's like, you know, like how are donors going to trust you after that if something like that happens? And they're like, oh, this guy did this and you had him in this position of power. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, that's
Right.
even if it's like, not the individual people's fault, that's what people are going to say.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. I think that's probably, I don't know. I wonder if anyone at Turning Point over there is like sort of worried about that. I mean, it seems like Charlie Kirk has just always been. Candace Owens was sort of that for a little bit too. Like she was involved with Turning Point, I think, for a little bit.
Yeah, but I don't people don't like see her as Turning Point. Like people don't see Turning Point as Candace Owens.
No, because now she's over with the Daily Wire, and now she's doing all sorts of different stuff. But yeah, he's really the only one that they've got. I know they have like Isabel Brown, like she does stuff for them. She was at the Bridge Summit as a guest speaker, but again, like it's Charlie Kirk's thing. Like he's their guy. Interesting. Maybe he needs to back off a little bit and get some other people in there with him.
Yeah, that would be my advice to him. I met him once, didn't get a chance to tell him that.
Oh, you actually met him?
Yeah, I've met him.
Oh, cool. That's cool. I've never met him. I think he was at Ohio State yesterday or 2 days ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Doing an event. I had a friend that went up there to that thing. Well, have you seen there's this event happening at Pitt now today?
Oh, what?
That it's it's Cabot, somebody Cabot, some guy is at Pitt today, and there's like a big protest that's being.
Oh
planned
yeah,
for the
I guess
whole
I did
thing.
see a little bit of that on social media.
They're doing those 3 events that are all getting protested. The Michael Knowles one, I think, is the one where the biggest like
Yeah.
being planned. That's going to be a whole thing.
His always get protested. It seems, no matter where he goes, really.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of seems like I'm kind of worried about that one a little bit. It seems like that could get bad, especially if a lot of people go to protest that.
Do you want me to? I kind of skipped over like half your initial question in the beginning, like when you asked me like what made me want to start UAM. And stuff.
Oh yeah, I still do want to know that. Yeah, that did get skipped.
Yeah. So essentially, I got into like caring about politics in like 2016. It was an election year. All of that. I worked with a couple different organizations and stuff, and I just saw like, kind of like the same thing we were talking about. They were like really just trying to get people like hunkered down into one side or the other, and like in an unhealthy way, and then also just kind of trying to like farm people for cheap labor. Essentially, like get people like really ideologically aligned, and then just get them to do like insane amounts of work for like nothing. And it really wasn't healthy for the people involved with it. So I saw that, and then I was like, all right, like and then I saw like the polarization thing and everything. It's just slowly over time, I'm like, all right, like are there any organizations like trying to do this other thing? At the time, there were, and I thought I saw 2 things with the orgs at the time. And this is like also before like Bridge was around and everything. The organizations I saw at the time that were trying to do like bridge building were essentially either doing a horrible job, like they had no idea what they were doing. They didn't have like good tactics for like having discussions and stuff. They were just throwing people together, and like it would always turn into a horrible debate. Or they were lying, and they were really trying to bring people to their side. So those were the 2 things I saw, and I'm like, all right, I like the people who had good faith. But like we're just doing a poor job, and a lot of those groups have disbanded. They don't exist anymore. I saw that, and I'm like, well, okay, I've seen all the things they have done wrong. Like I have all these ideas for things that will work, and then I've, started like doing experiments before even like I had the organization like incorporated and everything, to see if they would work, and like they did. And I was like, okay, like I can like actually make this work, and like this is something that can be done, and it's not impossible. Like. So many people, like, one of the biggest, like, pushbacks I would get from people was, like they'll just kind of look at me and they'll be like, well, it's a great idea, but will that work? And I'm like, yeah. Yeah, well.
That's kind of the tough part. Like, I find that the tough part about, like, pitching Bridge USA to people is that I think it's kind of hard. It's hard to explain the value of it unless you've experienced it.
Yeah.
Because you've experienced being in that room with somebody or being in one of those conversations where everything kind of clicked and nobody, has to agree on anything, but people just leave with that feeling of, oh, now I understand.
Yeah.
There's a value to that I can't put into words. Like, you can't explain how valuable that is. And if you've been in that setting, then you don't question the value of it at all. But I do see if someone was outside of that and I'm pitching it to them, it's like I have to try to explain, like, how do you measure changing hearts and minds? Like, how do I explain to people? Well, I don't really know.
Yeah, I know, like, I kind of skipped over this as well. Like one of the main things we do with UAM is put on the interpolitical discussions, and like they're filmed, and like one of our main tactics that I think that set us apart from other groups that do stuff similar is that everyone is like politically anonymous when they go into it. So when they're in the discussion, no one's really allowed to, or at least they're encouraged not to like out themselves. So they're not supposed to say like, oh, as a insert political ideology, I think, or like if they're like citing a politician or a political ideologue or anything like that, they're supposed to put in their own words rather than like essentially say like, oh, well, like Bernie Sanders said this about this.
Right.
So when you have that, like it's such a small change, but the entire dynamic of the conversation changes. Because as soon as someone realizes like someone's potentially on like the other team, it turns into a debate and it turns into a contest. But when people don't know, they're just having conversation and they're just like, you know, going off each other and they're like riffing and they're just, you know, really just like interacting like normal people. So, and I've seen like with some of the ones I've done, like I've, you know, generally try to bring in people who do not know each other. And like with the first one I did, I brought in 4 people who didn't know each other at all. And or you know, if they did know each other, it wasn't like personally. They'd maybe like known of this person like on campus or XYZ.
Yeah.
But you know, they started at. You could see like the transition over like this 2-hour like video we put on, and it was like, especially in like some of the. I should actually post the. At some point, I should post the like B-roll of this like during breaks and stuff.
Yeah.
Because it went from like they were basically complete strangers at the beginning to at the end you could tell they like liked each other. They were friends.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of the people like still keep in touch and are friends with each other. So that was something really great to see because it was like not only was I like having like the interpolitical discussion and it actually was very like poetic because the discussion topic was on social atomization, so like loneliness in society and things like that, just like that whole concept, and like I was able to like create friendships out of it. So that was really cool to see because that was like an actual change in these people's lives. Like I know at least 2 of them, and then one of the guys that was like essentially like my cameraman at the time, like all still keep in touch. They all still hang out and stuff, and they work together on other stuff. So that was awesome because that's like a legitimate change that like one little thing I organized like actually like had an effect on these people's lives and like for the better, like clearly. So it was like that was really cool to see. So that's like our main thing we do is the interpolitical discussions, and we do them on college campuses like we're going to do here today, obviously. But we're trying to be like more so most people that like a lot of people are familiar with Jubilee. You're familiar with Jubilee, right? Yeah, so we're essentially trying to do very much the same like format, and that's very much what the discussion formats are like. But like pretty much more explicitly, like Jubilee does a lot of fun stuff too.
Yeah.
And we're like more explicitly like issues and political. Right now we're looking for a studio space in the Chicago area, and then we can get people to come into like an actual professional studio. We'll fly people in. We'll have like applications for people to be on it. We'll get
that would be so cool.
Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
love
yeah.
to do that.
Yeah, you're welcome to be on one.
I would love to.
Yeah, and we're like currently looking for a studio space. And yeah, that's like that's kind of what we're transferring to. But we're always gonna do like the college campus stuff as well. So if anyone watching this wants to, like, they can just reach out. Instagram's the best way to reach us. And the other thing we're looking at doing is we're working on the ideas for and like gaining funds right now for a few documentaries. So one we have an idea on is we're gonna like interview essentially like all of the people around both the RNC and the DNC, and like not political people, like security guards, like janitors, like drivers, like
interesting,
and just see like what is their perspective on this? Has this been good for them? Has this been bad? You know, people who work at hotels, like, and just like the parts of like politics that you normally see in terms of like the political machine. So that's one we're working on, and then we're working on one that's going to be more of a series, and we're actually going to try to pitch this to like different streaming services. And that's we're going to call it Hidden America. So we plan on going to different places that don't get a lot of attention. So like we're going to go to like an Amish community, somewhere in Appalachia, like Navajo reservation, an Inuit community, like all of the U.S. territories that people forget we even own, like the Virgin Islands or like American Samoa, Guam, etc. Yeah, so that's like those are the 2 other big things we're working on right now. But
I'm really excited about both those. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
I would love to do the studio space thing. That would be so cool.
Yeah.
To go Chicago. How far of a drive is Chicago?
I mean, we could fly you in when we do it, get it set up. But it's about from here maybe about 9 hours.
Dang,
8
that's
or
9
hours.
That's a drive. That's a road trip for sure.
Just
Yeah, that's really cool. And you'd still plan on still doing the, like you said, still plan on doing the college campus tour.
Still doing.
Stuff?
Eventually, I want to have we're working on getting like a full-time crew that we can just send out to different college campuses with like camera equipment and stuff.
Gotcha.
So like students don't have to worry about it. And like eventually we do want to hire reps and stuff too that like just do street interviews like in like public places, and we'll provide them with the equipment for that and stuff. So if you're interested, DM me.
Yeah, where can they find? Where it's the Instagram handle?
Yeah, so it's a Unite_America_movement, and the logo is a purple background and like a heart making a handshake. Yeah.
Handshake thing. Yeah, that's it. Okay, that's really cool. I'm a fan of that. Is that really like the main bulk of the expansion, like studio space, and then doing some documentaries?
Yeah, and we've always wanted to do, and we've always done a little bit of like volunteer work, and the idea behind that is like we get people from different political orgs on campus to volunteer together. Different religious orgs and like any type of like I guess societal org in general. And the idea behind that is like when people like work together, especially physical labor, they'll start to like respect each other more and have camaraderie. So it's really just about that, and then like uniting the community through like like we do it like Habitat with Humanity is the one I like to work with the most, because I feel like in terms of like what you do for what it like puts into people's lives, it's just like one of the best orgs you can work with out there in terms of like charity. So.
Dang, maybe next time you come back, we'll do that, because we have Habitat for Humanity.
Yeah. That's the other thing. It's like it's everywhere. So like that's
there's one. There are I think there are a couple that are pretty close by. So, dang, maybe next time you swing through here, we'll set up something like that, because I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Even though we don't really have a diversity of political organizations on campus, we do have religious organizations though.
That works. I mean, like you can get people from University of Pittsburgh as well. I'm sure.
That's true. We could. Yeah. They've just been all of my people that I talked to over there have just been really busy with everything. Some of them got back to me on some stuff about today. They were all just busy.
Yeah. No, it's understandable. That's a big reason why we're trying to do the studio space as well, so we can like consistently like be putting out like a video a week, essentially. Yeah. Rather than like one every 2 months or something. It's hard to organize on college campuses. Like
it is,
and it's different at every university. Like they all have different regulations. They all have different types of student bodies, and just like so many weird little things that happen last minute and like all this stuff. To whereas when you have it all in house, it's like, all right, we just need to get the people here.
Yeah, you can control all the other factors.
Exactly.
In the actual space. Yeah, that's the tough part here. Is like I had to like register for the space and make sure everything's all good and like all that kind of stuff. Like make sure the university's okay with people being here, and we'll have to check everybody in whenever we go. But if you could just have people travel to you, then that makes that a lot easier.
Yeah, and I mean, like eventually we want to have multiple of them. So originally we were gonna go for like DC area, but we kind of thought that like, well, we're gonna get so many like very like specifically political people, and we want like a lot of, like just average people, normal, everyday people. And Chicago is a great space for that because it's the Chicagoland area, it's like very diverse in like every way, politically, racially, like religiously, all of that. So we can like get a very like good like the mix of people, different backgrounds, different opinions, different everything really. Because a lot of people think like Illinois is like this insanely blue state, but it's really just because Chicago like
Chicago exists.
Chicago exists. It's also like Chicago is like one of the most cracked cities for gerrymandering. But like they like the it's cracked in the way that they did it to themselves. So like, and if you look at like their districts, it's like an octopus. Like Chicago is like there'll be like a corner of Chicago, and then it'll rope in all of these like areas that like definitely vote like 80% red. So and like they've just kind of strategically done it to whereas like a Republican can never win. And that's one thing when people talk about gerrymandering, I'm like, it is like everyone should care about it, because like it's something that I think a lot of my like left wing friends like kind of think like, oh, only Republicans do this. I'm like, no, they like equally both do it.
Oh yeah. Like, it seems like the Democrats carved up Chicago pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, hypothetically, like you could like, if it was not done like partisanly, like on a partisan basis, obviously I don't know how you could possibly do this, but like gerrymandering could technically be like a good thing, or like not gerrymandering, but like redrawing districts to make sure the elections are competitive.
Yeah.
It could hypothetically be a good thing theoretically, but like it's obviously used to do the opposite of that. So
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, that part is tough, and that's so funny. There's like there's a meme that I always get on my Instagram, and it's like a pizza, and some idiot must have cut this pizza because it was like just giant, like a square cut out of the middle of it.
Oh,
like
yeah.
And it was like, who the fuck gerrymandered my pizza? And it was this whole thing. They like butchered this pizza.
Well, do you know the story about like where the name gerrymandering comes from?
No, I actually don't.
I don't know the full thing. I have like a vague memory of it, but I think the guy who did it, I think his first name was Jerry, or maybe his last name had Jerry in it. And the district he like made resembled like a salamander. People said so. Gerrymander. That's actually
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Actually, what it is.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it happened in like the 20s or something. Which is like so funny because
That's so
like
funny.
that's such like a 20s like thing that people would come up with. Like
Yeah, like Jerry. No, it is a fun word to say.
Yeah.
Gerrymandering is a fun word. That's true. I think we've got to wrap up here
all right. Yeah.
pretty soon because we've got to get over.
Well, if you have any more questions, like let's get through them then. Like
Yeah, I actually don't know if I have any. Oh no, I do have a couple that I like to ask at the end to
Okay.
all of our guests. Okay. What advice do you have for young people that are trying to get into politics or are trying to help fix the polarization and that kind of thing?
Okay, so I have a few different answers. If you're just trying to get into politics, don't let it consume your life. If you're in college, make sure you're getting good grades or passing grades. Don't like put school on the back burner for like basic political things. I know obviously you want to stay in good standing with organizations that you're working with and stuff, but show like you need to get your degree. Like a lot of this is one like predatory thing a lot of political orgs do, where they'll tell people to, hey, drop out, we'll hire you, and then you're working in DC, you're living in DC, and you're making $36,000 a year, which is that is
great.
like for those of you listening that don't know the cost of living in DC, that is like well below poverty rate.
Yeah.
If that's what you're making. So also definitely do internships. Try to do more than one. Try to do one that's like, if I understand that people want to stay in like a certain sphere, but try to do one that's at least a little bit different than what you align with politically, to give you more
interesting.
reach.
Okay.
Like I understand like it's kind of hard to like do one and then go to like completely opposite. They might not want to take you. But like, if you're like, I don't know, like I think it's easier for people that are like more like right leaning, because they can like do a conservative internship and then also like a libertarian one. And those two groups will be fine with each other. For left wing people, it's probably maybe a little bit harder. But there's like stuff out there you can find. You can like, you'll just like the couple you do might just be like more left than the other or something.
Yeah.
But like those groups also have problems with each other too. There's a lot more like internal division, I think, on the political left in terms of like not wanting to work with each other. But so I would say definitely don't let it consume your life. Do internships, and pretty much also do your own thing. Like definitely if you have time to like write like articles and stuff, do that. If you have time to make your own stuff, like even if it's just like graphics and stuff, do that. Like anything you can do that shows that you show initiative and that you can make stuff, like people love that in politics, and you'll like go way further, way faster. And then what was the other thing you said about the getting involved with helping with polarization?
Oh yeah, if they wanted to get into the bridge building space.
Yeah,
Advice for people there.
Yeah, either get involved with my organization, United American Movement, or get involved with Bridge USA. I'd say that's probably the best way. Or if you like, there's a couple guys I work with in Nashville that they like started like their own like local thing, and they're working with like 3 of the universities there, and they're kind of like an affiliate of me now. But like it's like called like I think they call it United Campuses for a Divided Country.
Cool.
But yeah, they just like totally did their own thing, like started from the ground up. I'm like, yeah, if you want to do that, that works too. Especially like if you can localize things, that's really great as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. Localizing stuff is pretty huge.
Yeah, but yeah, that's probably the 2 things I would say for each of those. But yeah, definitely get involved though. Don't just like read all the time. Like that's important. Or like don't just be on the internet all the time. Like get involved in real life with people and make connections.
Yeah. And what gives you hope for the future?
Honestly, like I kind of hinted at this earlier, but going around the country, talking to people, talking to different students, that really gives me hope for the future, because again, like what you see in real life is not what you see online.
No.
Like it's totally two different like realities. Like the type of it's just different, and you might even be talking to the same people. Like
Yeah.
like that's the funny part. But in person, people are much more polite, cordial, and willing to have a conversation with you than they are on Twitter.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. On social media in general.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Twitter, Twitter's just the worst one.
No, it's Twitter is the worst. I think it's just the worst. Period. That's interesting though, because that audiobook that I'm listening to now from Monica Guzman, like it was interesting. She was kind of talking about how she realized that the world that she had created on social media was completely different, like you said, from the world that is outside, like around us. But the problem is that sometimes these worlds that we create for ourselves on social media are so much better than the world around us, because we can be surrounded by people that validate our beliefs.
Yeah, well, it goes back to the like the desire to have like a group, to have an in-group preference in humans. But I think like it is so tempting to get into that. But once you get out of it, you will be like a more happy person.
Oh yeah, it's interesting because actually once you can escape it and get out of it, then you can sort of identify when it happens, and then you can actually look for. Because I don't think there's a problem with having like a group necessarily.
No, there's not a problem with it. But like in terms of like being like having like such a heightened in-group preference, and like like all these other people are my enemy type thing.
Yes,
it becomes addicting. Like it is like a form of addiction, I think, for a lot of people, and it's just very similar to people who had like other types of addiction. Once they're out of it and they look in, they're like, "What was I thinking? Like, how did I?"
Yeah, I mean, I have a little bit of that myself.
Yeah, I think everyone.
School.
I mean, I think everyone does now, especially with like smartphones and stuff and the internet. Everyone's a little bit addicted to various aspects of technology. One other thing I would add to like for people who want young people who want to get involved in bridge building, like you mentioned the book by Monica Guzman. What is it called again?
It's called I Never Thought of It That Way.
Yeah, that's it. That one's really good. I would also like what I would say in general is learn how to talk to people who are politically different from you and put it in like their perspective. Like if you want to make an argument for something, you can't like do it from the way that you argue for your side. You have to put it into their worldview or into like what they value. And one book I really recommend is The Three Languages of Politics. That one's very good.
Ooh, okay, I never heard of that one.
Yeah, I forgot who wrote that, but I know the Cato Institute publishes it, so you can find it there.
Okay.
But yeah, if you search it up, you'll find it, and then essentially just like kind of characterizes like, oh, like, you know, he the guy who wrote it, I'm pretty sure he's a libertarian, so he has his own biases in there. So you got like, you know, but he even acknowledges that, which is great. So like, but he like talks about like, oh, here's how like in general, like, you know, in general, this is how like conservatives conceptualize and view things, and this is like what their motivation is, their values, blah blah blah, and here's how like liberals do it, or like progressives, and then here's how like libertarians do it. So
yeah, that's cool.
And like obviously there's way more positions than that, but those are like the main like kind of three like kind of forms of thought that you're going to run into, because
I think they're like the foundations.
They're the three groups that have like the most sway in like the political media sphere. So like in terms of like defining the political culture, like they're going to have like the most influence, and they're going to influence the most like people essentially in terms of how they're thinking. So
I like that. Oh, also, I think you're right. Like I think like get good at arguing for the other side, but from their perspective, not yours. And I think do that by surrounding yourself with people that you disagree with.
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
so important.
Even like if you don't have anyone that you can do that, like another thing people tell me is like when I tell them this, essentially they're like, well, is there anyone from the other side that would even want to talk to me? I'm like, yeah.
Of course there are.
You just have to look. Like,
yeah, there's a ton.
It might not be in person. It might have to be online, like depending where you live and stuff. Like you might not be able to find anyone initially, but you eventually will. And like if you can't, like just watch like different. I would stay away from like mainstream stuff, but like, you know, definitely listen to different like podcasts, like small podcasts that like from different sides. Like that's one of the best things you can do to figure out like how average people think.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. And I think, like you said, like I think that it's tough on social media to have those conversations, but with the right person, you can have a good discussion about like the stuff you guys disagree with on social media. If you both are willing to sit down and have that good faith discussion. It's not as ideal as like a phone call or being in person, but it can still be done.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that's, you know, it's just also going to be way more impactful than, like, just arguing with people online. So, like,
yeah, it is. Yeah. It definitely is. Okay, we've got to wrap up. We got to go set up this event that we're doing. Yeah. Thanks for sitting down. It was fun.
Yeah, I had a great time.
We will catch you all later. We'll be dropping the stuff from our event at some point in
Yeah,
the near
yeah.
future on YouTube, and it'll be up on the Bridge Point Park Instagram page, and it'll be all over. So go check it out. Thanks, man. It was fun.
Yeah, thanks. I had a great time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.